All right, welcome back for another episode in our Star Trek Rewatch, where every Thursday I watch an episode of Star Trek the original series. Then I come here, read the plot synopsis from Alan Asherman's Star Trek Compendium, and then give you my thoughts and feelings on the episode. Now, before we get into this episode, I do want to give a little bit of an update. So, I have been using this version of the Star Trek Compendium, this revised and expanded edition, which goes up through Star Trek The Motion Picture. However, I was at a local thrift shop the other day, the Goodwill, and came across this, which is a 20th anniversary edition of the Star Trek Compendium. Okay. And this edition includes star dates for the episodes. So, for instance, this episode, which we'll be talking about today, Metamorphosis, which is the 31st in production order. All right, it's listed as episode number 31. There is a still shot from it right there in black and white. All the photographs in this version are different from the photos that are in this compendium. And whereas this compendium only went up through the motion picture, this goes up through Star Trek 3, the search for Spock. However, the big draw for this one, and really the reason why I picked it up, was because it covers the animated series. Okay, so we are going to be covering now, since I have the plot synopses for all of the animated episodes. When we get to the animated series, which I have on Blu-ray, we're going to be watching through that as well. So we're going to do all the original series content here on this channel. And then we'll decide what we're going to do, if we're going to go up through the next generation or not. I may just call it quits when we reach the end of the feature films. But we'll see. We got a long way to go before we get there. So let's just get right into this. So, Metamorphosis, episode number 9 of season number 2. The writer for this is Gene L. Kuhn. Director is Ralph Sinensky. Stardate 3219.4. The shuttlecraft Galileo is transporting alien Assistant Federation Commissioner Nancy Hedford back to the Enterprise when it is suddenly drawn off course by a mysterious cloud creature. After depositing the shuttle on planet Gamma Canaris N, the entity vanishes. Kirk, Spock, McCoy, and Commissioner Hedford then meet another castaway, revealed as Zephram Cochrane, the famed scientist from Alpha Centauri who discovered space warp drive over 100 years ago. At the age of 87, Cochrane decided that he wanted to die in outer space, so he boarded a ship and headed away from Alpha Centauri, only to be waylaid by the cloud creature, which Cochrane calls the Companion. Kirk communicates with the Companion by means of a universal translator and learns that the entity is in love with Cochrane. Cochrane is unable to accept this, especially since he's falling in love with Nancy Hedford. When Nancy's death is imminent, the Companion forsakes its immortal state to unite with the Earth Woman. Cochrane accepts the love of the Companion / Nancy and stays on the planet with her. So this is a bit of a love story. Of course, the guest star here, Glenn Corbett, plays Zephram Cochrane. He does a fine job here. Now, Asherman has him listed as his recurring role credits are from, let's see, Link. He played Link Chase in Route 66. He was also a star in the series The Road West, where he played Chance Reynolds. He was in Night Gallery. He was in The Man from U.N.C.L.E. So, yeah, he did a lot of television work. Now, Eleanor Donahue here, who plays Nancy Hedford, is best remembered for her recurring role on Father Knows Best as Betty Anderson. However, I know her from the Chris Elliott television series, the early days of Fox TV, Get a Life, where Chris Elliott plays a middle-aged, well, not quite middle-aged, but 30. He's in his 30s, a paper boy who still lives with his parents. Chris Elliott's mother was played in that episode or in that series by Eleanor Donahue. All right, so yeah, we have a ailing Nancy Hedford here who is basically on the verge of death if she doesn't get to a starbase and get medical treatment. And this entity known as the Companion kind of diverts the ship down to this planet where Zephram Cochrane has been for what, 150 years? I think that's what Kirk says. Like, Zephram Cochrane died 150 years ago. So this dude is from past. So basically, he's been granted immortality by the Companion, which has kind of rejuvenated him to a youthful condition and evidently has fallen in love with him. I don't know if it's like the love like that a dog has for its master. I mean, it probably goes beyond that. The Companion is an intelligent entity. It's just kind of weird that a amorphous cloud of energy has fallen in love with a carbon-based life form. But yeah, the entity merges with Nancy Hedford, and they become like one. And at which point, the Nancy Hedford slash companion thing, I don't know what you would call it. Nancy companion, whatever, Nancy 2.0. Um, she has gone through a metamorphosis, hence the title name, kind of a transhumanist thing where she is merged with this being and they have become a symbiotic entity, almost like you would see in Star Trek Deep Space Nine with the Trill, where the Dax character merges with a host and they become like a new life form essentially. So maybe this is kind of the genesis for the idea of the Trill species that comes later on in the series. I'm not sure if that's the case or not. Just kind of, you know, brainstorming here. But it's an enjoyable episode. There's not a whole lot of comedic bits in this one, really. I can't recall any comedy. It's more dramatic. Of course, once again, we get the whole idea of man. This is kind of, I mean, this recurring theme, right? And I'm really picking up on this now, watching these episodes in order and back to back to back to back, where Kirk is talking about man has to be challenged and has to have obstacles to overcome. And essentially, he can't just be like in a paradise, like everything given to him, because essentially Cochrane is living in a utopian state. I mean, everything he needs is kind of provided by the Companion. He's immortal, so he's in like an Eden-like condition, right? Like he can't die, and this is perceived as bad, right? Like he has to have something to overcome because he's stagnated. Um, so yeah, once again, we get this whole thing like you can't be comfortable in a cage, essentially. Other than that, I don't have a whole lot to say about this one. Um, it's not the best episode we've seen. It's not the worst. It's somewhere kind of like right in the middle in our tier ranking. Perfectly enjoyable episode. Probably the most dramatic thing that happens in this episode is when Spock is trying to get the shuttlecraft running again, and the Companion messes around with it, and like the back panel explodes and catches on fire, and then Spock like touches the Companion energy cloud thing, and it gives him like an electrical jolt, where he basically gets like launched backwards, and perhaps a little bit of overacting here on the part of Leonard Nimoy. I mean, taking a bump, like like in professional wrestling, almost just kind of like throwing himself dramatically. But other than that, that's really the only like major action sequence, I guess you would call it. There's really no fisticuffs. This is a more cerebral episode that's dealing more with like I don't know, issues of immortality, questioning, you know, the idyllic paradise, like who wants to live forever, I guess is the kind of the question in this one. Is it better to live in a paradise and be immortal, or to go out and face challenges and struggles? So yeah, that's it. Let me know your thoughts on this one below. Thanks for watching, and until next time, have a wonderful day.